Okay, and I think we're live. So hi everyone and welcome to my channel. For those new here, my name is Nikki. I'm an author and editor and I post videos here on YouTube about writing, editing, reading and all the other things I love. And it's the latter we're here for today because the end of the month has come yet again. So it's time to share with you my thoughts on some of the things I've been watching in terms of TV and film during the last few weeks. So it's actually quite a long list this time. I've been watching quite a lot in January. So I'll kick straight off. I still haven't been to the theatre. Theatres are open here. They have been for most of the pandemic. We had a little brief closure period, but they've been back for a while with obviously spaced seating. But there's just been nothing major on that I've wanted to see. And the same goes for the cinema. Again, cinemas have been open, again, even longer than theatres. And there's just nothing that's gripped me so far. However, there's a few things opening in February. There's at least two I looked at. So perhaps in February, I will finally have been to the cinema again. We'll see. It's been a year since I last went to the cinema. The last thing I saw on the big screen was The Rise of Skywalker, which was back in January last year. So it has been quite a long time since I've had a cinema experience. So maybe February is the month. In the meantime, though, there's been plenty to watch at home. Let me just get rid of this banner because it's getting a little bit annoying, isn't it? There we go. Yes, so I've been watching plenty. So I'll start off with 4 films that I watched on SBS On Demand, which is a free streaming service here in Australia. And SBS tends to show a lot of foreign films and TV series, which is awesome. These are all foreign ones that I watched, and in fact, they were all Korean. So the first of these was The Fortress. So this is a sort of historical war story. I'd watched previously The Great Battle. I watched that, I think it was in December. And typically I've been fine all day, and as soon as I start talking on one of these, I get a really dry throat. So excuse me a sec. The Great Battle I really liked. My husband came in towards the end and was like, oh, why did you not watch this one with me? So I thought The Fortress was going to be similar. So we did watch it together, but it wasn't quite as good. The Great Battle had lots of epic fighting scenes. There was a lot going on. The Fortress was a bit more of a slow-paced drama. There was a lot more just talking and as opposed to major action. There were some action scenes, but it just wasn't quite as compelling and exciting, I guess, as The Great Battle. So although we didn't mind it, it's not a film I'd rush to watch again. Moving on to something completely different, I watched The Beauty Inside. And the premise of this story is our main character, ever since being a teenager, has changed appearance. He used to be a boy, but he's changed appearance every single day. Whenever he goes to sleep, becomes unconscious, anything like that happens, he wakes up in a different body. Older, younger, female, male. It's different every time, which has made it very difficult for him to live his life. The only people that really know about this are his mother and his best friend. And he works as a furniture designer, maker. And he works mostly online. And his friend manages the everyday running of the studio, which has allowed him to live his life without too many problems resulting from his condition. But one day he falls in love with a woman, and the story is really about his attempts to form a relationship with her and the difficulty involved when she doesn't know what he's going to look like from day to day. This was quite an interesting story. I mean, there were certain aspects of it where by the end, when the movie finished, I did still have questions on how certain things worked and bits and pieces. But if you just kind of put that sort of questioning aside and just enjoyed it as a story, it was really entertaining, and I enjoyed the play of emotions between these two characters as they try to find a way to live with these difficulties that he has. The next one I watched was Her Story. And this is about the comfort women. So during the war, when the Japanese took a lot of women from different countries, I think Taiwan as well and Thailand, but a lot from Korea. And they were basically forced to work either in factories in really difficult conditions or in brothels for the soldiers. And all this kind of came to light, I think originally in the 90s or so. And it started a big court case of whether compensation was due and things that has been running on for years and years. And even now, it's not 100% resolved, I don't think, or it is in the minds of the Japanese government, but perhaps not in the Korean. It's quite a difficult diplomatic and political issue. So this story was about basically when the sort of story of the comfort women first broke in Korea and they first began these trials. So it's based on true life. And I thought it was quite a compelling drama. It was nicely acted. There was a good balance of showing the different opposing views. And all in all, if you like a drama that's based on real life events, then this is definitely one that's worth watching. And the last one I watched on SBS On Demand was Swing Kids, which is a story that was billed as a musical. And I don't think you can quite call it that. There was only a very limited amount of singing. It's more of a dance-related show. It's set in the prisoner of war camps during the Korean War. And the North Korean soldiers who are imprisoned by the Americans there, one of the American soldiers is trying to form a dance troupe. And so some of the prisoners are recruited into this. It's very difficult, this one, because I don't want to spoiler it. But considering it is a musical of sorts, I do ought to warn you that you mustn't go into this expecting a happy ending like I did, because otherwise you'll be really disappointed. I was really enjoying it. It was entertaining. It was fun. I loved the characters. And then tragedy struck. And I was just like, what the hell is going on? This was meant to be a happy story. So, yes, just have a box of tissues ready, because it's really not a happy story. But if you like dancing and just a bit of drama alongside, then it's worth checking out. Moving on, I watched one series on Crunchyroll, which was called DRAMAtical Murder. This is a really interesting one and slightly difficult one for me to talk about, because I can't even now decide how I feel about it. As a slight disclaimer, I should say that I've been really, really busy this month, like phenomenally busy, more than I expected. I thought things were going to quieten down this year, but it's not proved that way so far. And sometimes when I was watching these, I was kind of doing not major other tasks, but filling out stuff in my journal and writing to-do lists and other bits and pieces at the same time, maybe wrapping presents, or, you know, there was something else going on. I wasn't just staring at the screen. And I do wonder if perhaps maybe I was just missing too much. I can understand enough Japanese to keep up without looking at the subtitles every second now, but I do still need to look for some of it, obviously, or for probably half of it still. So perhaps I was missing things, because I liked the premise. Sorry, I'm playing with the curtain, just ignore me. I liked the premise. I liked the world building and the characters, but something about it just never really clicked for me. I never got deeply involved in the plot and what was happening. And I think part of that also, aside from being a little bit distracted during it, was the fact that I started watching this one because it was tagged as boys' love, essentially. And although there were some kind of intense friendship relationships between the guys and little hints of romance a bit later on, it wasn't as overtly boys' love as I'd been expecting, I guess is the fair way to say it. It wasn't like, you know, watching Ginger Romantica or something like that. So I think I was kind of waiting for that all the time, and it didn't really eventuate until very late towards the end of the show, especially because I'd heard this was a fairly explicit in its original source material, and that never really came across at all in the anime. So it was interesting. Look, I think it's fair to say I didn't hate it, and maybe I didn't give it a fair enough chance by giving it enough attention. But it's not one that I'd really be rushing to buy on DVD and watch again and again or anything like that. I was actually a bit annoyed. I don't think I mentioned this in the December stream, but in December, so I started watching Noblesse on Crunchyroll. Got to episode 3, and I'm not a subscriber on Crunchyroll because I only watch the odd thing on there, and it's not something I can afford to put money in. I already have Netflix and everything. So it just really annoyed me when episode 4 released and suddenly they were locked to subscribers only. And I was pretty damn irritated, I have to say, because if they'd said that was going to happen from the start, I wouldn't have bothered starting to watch it, because I did get quite involved and I was engaged with it and I was interested to see what would happen next. and then suddenly it was only for subscribers. And I was a little bit miffed, I have to say. I wish they'd just made it subscriber only from the start, or at least told us somewhere that you'd only be able to watch a couple of episodes so I would know. So yeah, that really bugged me. So that was in my mind while I was watching DRAMAtical Murder as well, and I haven't got anything else lined up I want to watch on there at the moment. But moving on YouTube, I also watched a mini-series, a web mini-series in Korean. I've discovered recently there were quite a few of these around, but I'd never come across them before. And the only reason this one came on my radar was because my favourite Korean actor, Lee Soo-hyuk, was playing the male lead in it. And so, of course, I saw that on his social media and went across to watch. The series is called Handmade Love, and it's available on YouTube via a channel called Put Your Handsome. And essentially, I think they're advertising clothing is the main reason for this. Clothing and fashion is the main reason for this web series. But considering that, it was extremely well done. It's only quite short, 8 episodes, about 15 to 20 minutes each. But the premise of the story is Lee Soo-hyuk's character, Woven, is a god, but he's been banished to Earth for stealing clothing. And his punishment is he cannot return to the heavens until he has given some kind of contentment and happiness to a large number of humans via clothing. So he becomes a tailor, and he helps people who have particular problems find resolution in their lives, until a young woman comes to him for that purpose, and things start to go awry, and she ends up eventually working in his store, and she changes his outlook and makes him think about humans in a different way and experience more understanding of human emotion. And this was really good. I could actually see this working as a full-length TV series, Korean TV series, because it was a really interesting premise, great characters, really good performances, and great chemistry between them. And it's a shame it was so short, is the only thing I would say. But definitely check it out, because it doesn't take long to watch. And it is really enjoyable and good fun. Which brings us, of course, to Netflix. So there's a few things I've watched on there. I'll start with the films first. I watched 3 films on Netflix during January. The first of these was The Call. And this is a kind of time travel psychological thriller, I guess is the best way to describe it. Of a young woman who gets caught up in this with this serial killer because of these strange phone calls that she starts getting from her house where she's living, but in the past when another family lived there. It was quite gripping. It was quite enjoyable. You wanted to kind of yell at the female lead a few times just for being too stupid to live. But the ending, just without spoiling it, did leave things a bit open. So you kind of think things are resolved, but then in the last few moments, you wonder exactly if they are or what's going to happen. So it was good fun. Anyway, my husband watched this one with me and he enjoyed it too. The next one is a Taiwanese boys' love movie called Your Name Engraved Herein. And this is quite a sweet drama. It begins off with these 2 guys who are at school together, are attracted to each other, but the stigma of being gay kind of pushes them apart. But for those of you who don't like boys' love with sad endings, I can tell you that there is a sort of happy or happier note at the end of this one, without spoiling it too much, but it isn't one of those sad endings where one of them dies or something like that. It is a more hopeful conclusion. It was nicely acted. It wasn't super thrilling. I felt the pacing could have been improved a little bit, but it was still, as I said, an enjoyable boys' love drama, and one with a happier, more hopeful ending. And the last of the films I watched is a Korean boys' love drama called Wish You, which I believe was released previously as like a series and has been put together as a film for Netflix, from what I've been able to suss out online. And this is about 2 young musicians who find each other and manage to sort of build a relationship and create music together. Again, it's a more hopeful ending. I was a bit worried at one point in the middle, but yay, it wasn't a sad one in the end. So there's some great music, some really nice songs in it as well. So if you're into music and K-pop and boys love, then this is definitely one you'll want to check out. Which brings us on to the series, and I've watched 6 series on Netflix in January. So maybe I'll start with the English one first. I watched Bridgerton. Now, I love costume dramas. I love period dramas, and so of course I wanted to watch Bridgerton, and I haven't read the books. So I came to this with no idea about what it would be like. And it was a really mixed bag for me. It wasn't unenjoyable. It was entertaining. I didn't mind the performances. It just got on the wrong side of me a few times. Straight away in the opening when they were talking about pulling the waist in for corsets, which really isn't the correct time period for waist focus. So that was a little bit strange, and it kind of put me off. And I did feel that some of the clothing, although I'd say it was about 80% period accurate, but then there were some really weird things going on here and there as well. And that kind of thing bugs me in period dramas if they don't get most of it right, at least. And there was just something that felt always a little bit unbelievable about it. And I can't even really say what it is. I mean, it just felt a little bit over the top now and again. Perhaps that's the best way to say it. So although I didn't dislike it, I didn't love it. It was the middle of the road for me, and I wouldn't rave about it as much as some people are. And I'm not really that inspired to go and read the books either at this stage. It was the only thing I've watched in English for quite a while though, so go me. Moving on, we might as well do the Japanese one and then come to the Korean after. So the Japanese one I watched on Netflix is called Love and Fortune. This was a fairly short but interesting drama about a woman in her 30s who's kind of just plodding through life. She's got this part-time job. She's got a boyfriend with whom she feels comfortable, but there's not really any romance there anymore. And she kind of just puts up with him more than anything. But she feels that if she left him, then would anyone else ever be interested in her? And then one day she meets a young guy and is attracted to him straight away, and only later discovers that he's actually a schoolboy. He's 15. However, they do begin this relationship that starts as friendship and develops because of their love of movies. And this causes problems for her in the workplace, for him at school, because of the alienation they face over this relationship between them. And her difficulty in trying to work out what she wants, because should she sacrifice stability at her age for what could just be a momentary excitement? And obviously it looks at, the issues of relationships where there is that big age gap. And I'm just trying to think about how to say it without ruining it too much. I think it's a thoughtful drama, and what I would say about it is it doesn't show this relationship in any kind of glamorous light. It's not glorifying the sort of underage power imbalance relationship between them, but it's looking at what would make them come together and how would they cope with that when faced with this stigma and the sort of the way people would view them and how they feel about each other. So it's a thoughtful drama. I thought it was well acted, good performances from both the leads. And I definitely recommend it. If you're into that kind of deeper drama that's looking at major issues without glamorizing them, then this is definitely one to have a watch. So that leaves me with the 4 Korean series that I've watched. I'll start off with Sweet Home. I'm not a big horror watcher, but this one looks quite fun and I did enjoy it. So it's basically set in an apartment building. And all of a sudden around the country, world, people have started turning into these monsters and attacking and killing each other. And within the apartment building, a group of survivors have gathered together. And our main character is a young man who has begun the process of turning into a monster. But unlike the others who have succumbed to it, he's at this kind of middle stage where he can kind of control it, and he can use that power when he wants to, but he can pull himself back. And so the others use him for protection in many ways. And as well as being about fighting the monsters, this piece kind of looks at the dynamic between this group of very different people who are thrust together and the different ways they cope and either work with or turn against each other. There's also this sort of military action going on in the background, where they're trying to collect anyone like our main character who has some kind of immunity to fully turning that they think they can use. The way it ends makes me feel that there might be a second series, and if there is, I would definitely be interested in watching it, because this was really enjoyable. I thought the performances were good, particularly from the male lead. I think he really turned in a good performance there. And it's a bit bloody and violent, but it's really entertaining. Next up is another sort of slightly gruesome. It's not quite gruesome, but it's called The Guest, and it's about the spirit of a serial killer who, in the start of the story, possesses this young boy, and they manage to get the demon out of him, but this demon jumps into someone else, and he's going around helping other evil spirits possess people, and which then leads to various murders. So the young man's now grown up, and he is on the hunt for this guy. He wants to stop him at last because he feels responsible for the fact he's still out there. And two other children were affected at the time of the initial incident. And one of them is now a Catholic priest and an exorcist. And the other one is a police detective. So the three of them end up joining together to try to stop this evil spirit. So there's lots of murders along the way, trying to contend with how are they going to destroy this guy for good. This was an entertaining, enjoyable piece, nicely paced. As usual with the Korean shows, a really good blend of kind of drama, action, emotion, and the odd little bit of humour, although this one's not quite as humorous as some. I particularly enjoyed the performance by the actor playing the priest. I thought he did really well. And plus he's cute, bonus. And overall it was just an enjoyable drama. So if you like that kind of supernatural thriller with a bit of a serial killer aspect, then it's worth watching. Which brings us down to the last two. It's been a fairly long one today because I did watch a lot. The next one I watched was Her Private Life. And this one is centered around a young woman who is an art museum curator. However, in her spare time, she doubles as a rabid fangirl and who is obsessed with this guy who's in a K-pop band. And she runs a fan site for him. And but this is all kept very much hidden. Her family know and her best friend, but none of her work colleagues have any idea about this other persona where she's this obsessed fan. And she especially wishes to keep it from her new boss, with whom she has already had some run-ins, both as a curator and bizarrely as a fangirl, though she was masked, so he didn't recognise her at the time. This is really cute and fun. I mean, it's a straightforward contemporary rom-com, and plenty of humour, but also plenty of emotion and drama. As I've said, the Koreans do get this balance really well in all their shows. It doesn't have to just be one thing, which is, I think, why I love them so much, because you do get a bit of everything in these dramas. So you had plenty of times when I was laughing, and other times when I was really worried and sad about what was going to happen. And overall, it was just super cute, this one. And so if you like just slightly ditzy rom-coms, then this is a good one to check out. And the last one I watched is W, Two Worlds Apart. And this one is about a young woman who she has a father who is a very famous webtoon creator, and he has written this very famous series called W, and it's read really widely, and he's been working on it for something like 10 years. And one day, the main female lead gets dragged into the world of W. It turns out her father is planning to kill off the main character and end the series. But she gets pulled into the scene just as the main character is dying. And because she is a doctor, she saves his life. And suddenly the story begins to take on a life of its own, and she is travelling back and forward between the real world and the world of the webtoon. As things begin to blur, and the killer who's killed the webtoon main character's family right at the start of the webtoon series starts to target people in the real world as well. I can't say too much more than that without spoiling it, but this was really engaging. I thought the concept was great fun. It's not the first time I've seen a concept like this in a K-drama, but it worked really well. The back and forth worked well, and they gave enough explanation for it to feel natural enough that you can not query too much. And again, a really nice balance of humour and action and drama. The ending of this one, I think, worked quite well. I had a few little niggles with one or two bits of it, but for the most part, I thought it was really enjoyable. It was a nicely paced series, kept me on the edge of my seat wanting to know what was going to happen. And so if you like sort of that fantasy spec fic kind of romance and rom-com, then this is one to check out. So finally, that does bring me to the end of my TV and film wrap-up for January. I've got a couple of things I'm in the middle of watching now, so I'll have plenty to talk about next time as well. For those of you who follow my book wrap-ups, I will be back with that in a moment. I need another drink, so my voice is gone again. And I need to just set it all up, but probably give me 15 minutes or so, and I'll be starting that one. So I hope you'll join me then. If you're coming back for another one of these, check me out again at the end of the next month, when I'll be back to talk films and TV again. And of course, on my YouTube channel, there'll be the usual couple of videos releasing earlier in February as well. So I'll end there for now, but I hope to see you all again very soon, hopefully in a few minutes. Bye for now, everyone.